Crambless came a little early for Project L fans, didn't it? I wake up and get my day going today, and lo and behold, we have some news from Riot Games and Tom Cannon over at the Project L team. And we're finally getting a little bit of a taste of what the actual mechanics of the game are supposed to be like. So we got a little bit of a closer look at some of the tag mechanics in this last update video. Yes, of course, Niche Fighter Monday, where we are looking at, the nichest of all indie developers out there, Riot Games. You know, that small little team of upstarts who just, you know, are trucking away. We're gonna take a look at what they're up to. So this is honestly one of the things I want to talk about when it comes to Project L isn't actually about the game at all. It's about the Riot Games of it all, right? Like there is going to be a whole new group of people who are familiar with competitive gaming from a completely different perspective than the fighting game community, and they are going to be playing a game that's primarily aimed, or as far as we're concerned, primarily aimed at the fighting game community. So this is going to be I talked about in my little social science class that I did about values, about we're entering a fundamental culture shift when it comes to the fighting game community, and the aspects of like organized competitive traditional esports clashing with fighting game culture values is going to be one of the core components of it. And I think Project L is going to bring that to the forefront. But in the meantime, we are going to talk, listen, this is the first bit of news I think we really got from Riot about some of the the inner workings of the mechanics. They've talked about kind of their process. They've talked about kind of like their design principles, about how they're approaching it. And they've talked about some of like character design stuff and some of that stuff, the ancillary stuff. But now it's really, they're like, okay, we're going to show you end of year. Let's show you some mechanics going into 2023. So let's I'm going to hit play on this and we're going to take a listen to what they got going on.
I know at this point you're probably itching for some details. So this time we're going to send the year off right with a deep dive into some of our core systems. Allow is now live in our internal playtests. This early draft of our model and kit.
I love these tentacles.
What you're seeing here is about 30% complete. Right now, the team is focused on fully realizing our combat fantasy as a big body brawler and narrowing in on the mechanics of our tentacle attacks.
Big body brawler is dope. What's it all about? Yeah, big body brawler is not a dude is a very welcome thing.
We want to create a game where you can have fun right away, while also rewarding you for the time you spend mastering it. We believe there are a ton of opportunities for player expression and mastery through how you move. In Project L, you can walk, run, dash, chain dash, jump, long jump, and super jump.
Long jump, super jump, right?
And on top of that, many champions have their own unique air mobility options.
Movement options. That is great. Like this is, there's one thing, they talk about it being like a tag versus game, right? And one of the core components, I realized this having played a bit of Marvel 3 just the other day with some people. I ran some sets and playing Marvel 3 and remembering how amazing the feel of mobility is. Just dashing forward, getting a launcher, like super jumping back and using not only the universal movement mechanics, but then the character specific ones to kind of like alter your jump arcs and alter your momentum. Like that is super satisfying, and just moving around in neutral feels great, right? And so it's like I'm glad that they're having these are all the tools, right? You get the super jumps, you get the long jumps, you can chain your dashes, you can do them all in different ways and different permutations, right? And talking about that being a core component of player expression, I think is a really welcome statement from these developers, right? Yeah, chain dash, probably plinking without the plink, right? Like you think of how you can wave dash or plink dash and get those multiple ones. If you just have, you know, a set number of mobility points, basically, like you would have juggle points, and then you're able to string them together in whichever way you want, like that's great. And then so like you'll have character archetypes that have different limits on their mobility, right? Like your big body grappler or brawler is not going to have as much mobility as your little kitsune here, right? That's great. And it's like it's a universal thing, so there's all this like cross porting of knowledge between all the characters. I like that. Yeah, you doing that with some kind of stamina mechanic is always good. Like Cyberbots does that with its dash button, where like everyone has a dash or a fly, and it all takes up this. And some characters' meters are bigger than others, and maybe some of them, some of their dashes and flies work slightly differently. But it's all done in the same way, and it's all tied to the same mechanic. So there's this cross-porting of knowledge, which is really important. I mean, especially they also talk about being open to beginners. So like that's an important thing to note.
This means making sure that your offense is rewarding and that your buttons are worth pressing. Plus, we think this makes playing and watching more exciting.
See, and like, okay, that's a very Riot thing if you ask me. It also makes it more exciting for viewers.
We also want to incentivize
they're
action.
Cognizant of the
this means making sure that your offense is rewarding and that your buttons are worth pressing. Plus, we think this makes playing and watching more exciting. We have a mix of big, clear defensive options and some more nuanced systems that reward you for reading your opponent's next move.
Did you see that push block?
This means making sure that your offense is rewarding. We have a mix of big, clear defensive options.
Yo, that was just like, you are now cornered. Congratulations. You hit me with a button, I blocked it, you're cornered. I'm curious if push block is going to be tied to a meter at all. Just immediately seeing that, where I'm like, granted, it doesn't really leave you in a position to like push block and punish. So if you're doing like an ABC string on offense and you get push block on B, at that distance, you might be hard pressed to punish even a heavy at full screen. So maybe it's not tied to meter, but like that seems like a beautiful get the fuck off me. Yeah, push block all the way to space. Okay. Soft launch, tag into aerial combo. Oh, that's kind of nice. The slow fireballs. I do like a good slow fireball. Oh, okay. Ooh. This is cool. So your assist, your other character can deal with the, or like interact with Jinx's little gadgets. Fireball, Oki, tag.
But for today, I want to focus on 3 of them. Assist actions, handshake tag, and dynamic save.
Handshake tag is I think going to be the key.
They may be called something different the next time you see them. Assist actions are your bread and butter, and each champion has 2 they can perform from off screen. You can even hold the input to get a charged assist.
That's cute.
Handshake
tag, like two assist types and a charged one is
charge assist.
Is a nice
champion has 2
is a nice bit of thing, right? Like you're not just choosing from 3 different types of assists.
Handshake tag lets you immediately swap between your point and assist champions as long as they're both on screen.
Okay, and the handshake tag is the reason why your character stays out for so dang long when you call them in, right? They're going to show something in a second here where you can do a tag really fast. And so you can call in your assist, and then you can most likely hit the button again to activate that assist character. I believe Battle for the Grid does it like this. It's interesting to see another game take a, once again, a similar approach to another like fast-paced versus style fighting game. Yeah, it looks very Battle for the Grid.
When combined with assist actions, it also lets you set up some really powerful pressure sequences.
Look at that.
You can even use these to extend your combos as well.
You get...
When combined with assist actions, it also lets you set up some really powerful pressure
call in,
sequences.
dash in, cross up, ABC, and they're still there for a tag. That's a very wide window for mix-ups. Like, right, as long as they're both on screen.
It also lets you set up some really powerful pressure sequences. And you can even use these to extend your combos as well.
I mean, it's very visually clear. Like, I'm pretty sure that's going to be something that's relatively reactable when you see the flash to be like, okay, I got to pay attention to the mix-up. You might not, you obviously don't know what the mix is, but at least you get this, like, timing thing for it. But, I mean, that's it, where it's like, that's going to be a lot of good, like, conditioning players to expect a tag and mix at early or late, and then being able to make that variable is always a really cool and interesting. Like the active tag mechanics like MBCI and Battle for the Grid, I think they're a little bit polarizing. Like some people really like them, some people really don't. I think it at least it opens up a lot of options for players. And in a game like this, I think it's very apt.
Project L's Combo Breaker.
All right, the Combo
At
Breaker.
the start of each match, you have access to your Dynamic Save ability. Dynamic Save lets you call your assist champion on screen in an attempt to save your point champion. If successful,
so it's like a
the
burst.
results can be explosive. But be careful
That
about
auto
timing your
tags.
Dynamic Save, because it can be countered if you're being too predictable.
Yeah, and then that's a big counter hit that gets a wall
There's still
bounce on
more to
punish.
uncover about our gameplay.
There's going to be a little bit of a little outro here, but yeah, this dynamic save. So at the start of the match, which makes me think it's like a burst. So perhaps once per match, maybe they'll do Blaze Blue where it recharges between rounds. I doubt that this would recharge. Feels a bit like League cross tag battle, right? I mean, they're definitely pulling from. I don't know how much they're actually pulling from it, but there are similarities to a lot of things like cross tag battle and Battle for the Grid. So like the way that these versus games have handled things, I don't know what it is that there's this like there's been this trend towards the active tag where I think the people who appreciate the versus style games have started realizing, like, if you look back throughout the ages of of these versus games, that you'll see the very early ones had very, very limited tag mechanics, and as it's gone over time, they've started out with like really no tag mechanics at all, and then started out like no assist calls or anything like that, just tagging in and out in team supers, and then moving on to you have your secondary character can come in for an assist. There's more interactions between them. Marvel vs. Street Fighter, I think, did like the dynamic battle, or MVC1 did the dynamic battle, right? And then you start bringing in versus games that give you a list of assists to choose from, or all of your, it's now a 3v3 and your two other ones have multiple assists they can choose from, but only one at a time. Now it's, hey, you have multiple assist types that you can call at any time, and now it's the active tag stuff. So it's like every generation of the versus style games, they seem to be layering more and more of these things on, and you've seen that trickle out into a bunch of the anime games and then reinforce each other there. So things like cross tag battle, incorporating that kind of stuff. So you're going to start seeing more of these similarities.
Thanks to all the tournament organizers who met with us at EVO last summer to share your thoughts, feelings, and hopes for Project L's community and competitive scene.
Thanks for all the feedback from the TOs about your hopes, dreams, and expectations, yada yada, about the future of the competitive community. This is a very deliberate fighting game community. We are not coming to esportsify you. This is trying to temper those concerns right here. We're talking to your big and important TOs, friends. Don't you worry about it. We're listening. We hear your concerns. Now, of all of the people involved in Project L, I am glad, actually, that there are people like the Cannons involved who understand the importance of the fighting game community and how it operates. I do not think for a split second that Riot Games is going to let their competitive scene be ruled by someone else's rules. I don't see it. I don't see it. Like, Riot is going to be out there saying, this is the competitive sphere, right? They talked about some of their plans for competition and competitive tiering. And if you look at the history of Riot Games competitive games, you're going to see, I think the Project L stuff will be more open, but it'll be more open and grassroots like the FGC we know, only at the bottom tier. Where there's going to be your weeklies and all that stuff, they are like the bottom tier of the competitive level, and you might be able to earn some points there that can get you into a third tier down competition here, which if you win can get you access to this, which are only run by their trusted TOs, until finally you get into the primary tier, which is their high-end competitive Capcom Pro League style thing, right? And that's going to be dominated by Riot Games. They are going to control that ecosystem. I do not see another way for them to function. And I think we're going to get a lot of this kind of concern. How we're going to do that? Well, don't worry. You're going to be locked down to these bottom 2 or 3 tiers where it's like, that's them's the breaks, right? But I can't foresee how it would work otherwise. I don't think that Riot is hinging the future success of their company on Project L, and so I don't think that someone like this team has the power to dictate what the Riot Games monetary concerns are, which frankly is their competitive scene. Like, so much of their control and power and name share and PR efforts and advertising is all tied into that. I don't think it's going away. In fairness, Riot Games is not the originator. It's not like they're the originators of this whole concept. We've had CPT for half a decade now. Ducky, no, absolutely. There has always been way more organized and corporate competitive gaming, and that has always been set apart from the fighting game community. And you've seen that pressure in the early 2000s with Major League Gaming, where MLG was involved with an EVO one year, and it was fucking... Some shit always happens. MLG stepping into the FGC space was not welcome, and they were shunned. Anytime there was a corporate influence in the fighting game community for the longest time, it was seen as an affront of, these orgs don't understand how the FGC works, the FGC is different, and that has only spread to the major esports that have come up over the years, with OWL, with all of the CSGO stuff, with League of Legends and Hearthstone and everything, right? All those competitive scenes that are now dominated by the major IP holders, right? The corporate interests. So no, it's not like Riot invented this, but I think Riot is an extremely good example of a company that has created a very strong top-down competitive infrastructure, and that's in their corporate DNA. And I don't see that going away, right? Yes, if we have more TOs, Mohas, then we do have more tournaments and less of a corporate monolith situation regarding esports. More smaller tournaments would be great. That is true, but it also means that we are more disconnected and we can't rally the same kind of resources. Like, the amount of effort that would take to coordinate all of the local TOs to provide a tour for a game, for example, or some kind of league that is consistent, like internally consistent and across all of the different areas, some way to bring them all together, some kind of final situation, a Smash World Tour like thing. You see the kind of effort that goes into that and the kind of attention and ire that it draws from the corporate interests. We have less of an issue with that in the fighting game community in general, but you start seeing it. There are licenses for SNK games and Capcom games and Nintendo games. So these are still concerns, but a larger organized structure would give you more leverage to actually kind of negotiate those things and be in a comfortable situation. So, okay. We're not done.
For those of you out there looking to get into fighting games for the first time, try finding a local scene in your area. Fighting games, like most things, are way better when they're enjoyed with friends. FGC folks, help the new folks out by sharing your links in the comments. Thanks so much for everything, and stay tuned for more next year.
Right, and that is 100% a sentiment that I can get behind. Fighting games are better with friends, and you should go find your locals if you got them, and you should make your own online locals if you can. Join some online communities. Like, that shit's important. I think this is a bit of the nod to, look, the Cannons and the team, and even Riot to a certain degree, do understand what is happening in the fighting game community and the way it differs from other traditional esports, and the kind of resistance that they're going to get if they try to just arbitrarily enforce this top-down structure. So I think this is them easing their way into it, where they're like, look, man, thanks for talking to us, TOs. Hey, you look at all these great TOs. Folks, go get into your local scenes now, because you're going to want to be involved in those local scenes when we announce our Project L leagues and all of these organizers coming to it, right? That's going to be important as Whiskey Pale following me right now. Much appreciated. Hypergraph saying, we're in a weird era. What % of the player base started purely through online now and don't even have a local connection? It's been there for at least a decade, but COVID has amplified this by 100 times. It is a very weird thing, and I think that there's the large bulk of the fighting game community, which is offline driven, and the older community built around locals. There's this adjustment period, right? And we're working our way towards, because we have now so many more people involved in the scene who don't have that as their point of reference. So there's gonna be this like I said, there's a culture shift happening, and there's a clash happening right now, and those are two of the aspects of it. Ultimately, the primarily online folks would benefit greatly from participating in the offline scene, and vice versa, right? Where there are benefits to each of those that I think part of them are missing out on, and melding those two bits together is what's going to be really important. But all told, man, like I'm excited. I'm glad that we got to see a little bit more about what's going on with Project L mechanically. The tag stuff looks pretty interesting. I mean, the active tag looks cool. I'm glad that they're adding more versatility in terms of the assist calls, and tying their burst into the tag mechanic is also pretty neat. So I'm definitely interested. I want to see where some of the archetypes goes. Ilioi, I believe was her name, looks really dope as like the big body brawler who has like these tentacles for space control and moving their opponents around. It's I think that's a really lovely archetype, and I definitely am excited to explore that, and I'm hoping that they really embrace the nature of, like, I'm not a huge League fan, so like I don't know where these characters come from, but it's very clear that they are designed in very much the same way that fighting game characters are designed, based on their archetypes, and they have all these like very distinctive features. So even just looking at them, you get a sense of it, and I just want to see them lean into that more. There's a lot of potential for character design within that space.